So let's talk about the Node Package Manager. Every time you install Node, you also get what's called NPM, which stands for Node Package Manager. And this allows us to install modules that are not part of the core modules. So I said it allows us to install third-party modules. So like I said, when we start designing Node applications, our Node applications are typically made of modules that exist in 3 different places. You have your core modules, which are included inside of Node. You have your local modules, which you yourself create as JavaScript files. Or you can import third-party modules to do tasks that you don't want to develop yourself, but also that are not part of the core modules. And so we can install these third-party modules using the Node Package Manager. So for those of you who have already used Python, this is very similar to pip. And so, yeah, I just mentioned, so it's a package manager for Node packages or modules, right? We can see all the Node modules hosted here at npmjs.com. There are thousands of free packages available for you as you design your code. Before you start implementing anything from scratch, I would implore you to check the NPM repository to see if they have things that are already predefined for you to use. So what is a package? A package in Node just contains all the files you need for a module. Modules are JavaScript libraries that you can include in your projects. And there are tons and tons and tons of these registries that exist. Okay, so really for NPM, the essential commands that we really want to know about. Init will, and I hope I have a slide on init. So init just allows you to start to essentially initialize a Node application. And typically it's going to do that by creating a package.json for you. I will talk a little bit about what the package.json is in just a moment. The other commands that we definitely want to know is npm install and npm start. So fundamentally, the 3 things that you will use for npm will be followed by these commands typically. Yeah, again, so npm will manage your download of dependencies for your project so that you don't have to go to the internet and find them yourselves. You just tell npm what module you want, and it knows where to download it from the registry. And then the npm, besides downloading all the external modules that you might need for your application, will also manage the dependencies. So if those third-party modules require modules themselves, it will go ahead and install those modules. A npm will also manage your project's dependencies. It does it using a file that's called package.json. As we already know, JSON just represents a serialized JavaScript object. And so it's like a human readable way of defining essentially key value pairs. And so we can define the configuration of our own applications using a key value pair that's specified by this package.json. And so when we do npm install, if we don't use a module name, if we just do install itself, it will look for a package.json file in our directory that we're invoking this from and try to install all those locally, all those modules locally. Okay, so let's see here. So I just mentioned this already. So npm install and then a package name will install a package locally. npm update will update a package. So we'll check to see if the package version that it currently has installed or essentially downloaded is older than the one that's currently inside the registry. If it is, then it will update all the ones that are in the package.json versus giving the package name, it'll just update that one. So let's talk about what npm does in terms of versioning. In addition to plain downloads, npm manages our versioning. And so we can see that because it can check for these versions and update for us. So we can also run tasks with npm. So the package.json file supports a format for specifying a command line task that can be run by using npm run and then whatever the task name is. So inside of our package.json, recall it looks like a JavaScript object. So we can have inside of our package.json a scripts category, a scripts key that itself is an object, and the key value pair inside of our package.json can give actions that can be invoked by that run keyword in npm. So say, for instance, I want to be able to specify being able to launch my application using Node. So remember, Node actually launches the JavaScript runtime environment. But suppose I have a server development and a server production library directories. If I want quick mechanisms to run either my dev environment or my production environment, I can have this scripts key value pair and invoke that with run. So again, start dev and start can be run from npm using npm run start to access this invocation of my code base versus npm run start dev, which will then target this one. And we will cover this in a lab. So I'm just giving you a precursor of what you will see in the future. So when you install a package using npm, you can perform two types of installations. You can do a local install or you can do a global install. So if you just do npm install Lodash, that will be the local install, which would install under a node modules subfolder in the directory you're currently in. If you do -g, it will go ahead and install this globally, so it's available for all node applications inside of this workspace, inside of your instance of Node. And really, the only difference between the two, the only difference between when you install something locally versus globally is where that Node module is being installed. When you install it globally, it's going to gain access to it from essentially the node's installation directory space. Let me see if I have a. I don't know if I create a folder of where exactly that is, but essentially that's going to be the only distinction. Typically, you want to install things in the local directory unless it's something that you're used for every project. So one thing that I might recommend that you install globally would be like the HTTP-server, where you can actually create an HTTP server for testing purposes for your web client stuff, so you don't have to use the Chrome-based one. And I guess I'll show that later. I kind of want to talk about the package.json really quick. So package.json is a manifest for your project. It's a central repository of configuration for tools, and essentially stores the name of the application, the name of the authors, the version of the application, and all the dependencies that your application has. So pretty much you want to think of package.json as the metadata for your application. So all of your applications will require this, and in order for you to be able to launch your application on some new machine, npm will use this package.json to essentially set up and initialize your project's application, install the dependencies and whatnot, so that you can then launch your application. So in order to make a package.json, you can just, inside your root directory, make something called package.json, and then define something in curly braces. It could actually be empty, and that's fine. It just means that there's no instructions inside of there. A lot of the common properties that are found are like the version, the name of the application, the description for what the application does, the main, which is the entry point for your application. Scripts is what you can invoke the run command on to be able to run different portions of your application. Dependencies lists all of the dependencies, what third-party modules that your application will use. The engine sets which version of the node version you need to use, because sometimes as node upgrades, it can break on older third-party modules. You can always uninstall a package, just do an npm uninstall in the package name, or do a global uninstall as well. Oh yeah, and here I already mentioned this. And I already mentioned this, just the difference between global or local packages. Excellent. So for the most part, this is what I want to talk about Node with the Node Package Manager. I will say, to get a much deeper understanding of what's happening, I would recommend just kind of reading through this to see a general breakdown of what a Node package, what the package.json file looks like. And again, we will create our own, I think, for the next several labs to get used to that concept. But it's going to be critical that you always have a package.json file for all of your Node applications, because again, it sets up and installs all of your dependencies. And most often, it's the case that you will not create Node applications that depend strictly on your local modules and your core modules. Okay, is there any questions about either of these, of either the core modules or the Node package module, the Node package manager that allows us to install third-party modules? And again, you should see all of these examples in this lab and in next lab, the lab that I'm about to issue later this week as well. Excellent. So everyone, so I guess that's the thing I'm asking. Has this been coherent? Do you feel like you have learned a little bit about Node's architecture, the core modules that Node supports as part of the standard library, and the mechanism by which we can define our dependencies and download our dependencies for third-party applications? So so in theory, at least, did this kind of make sense? Excellent, because that's what, and so I'm hoping you'll get actual real world, a real world feel for it in these next coming lectures. I mean, these next coming labs. I think these next coming labs will really help give really strong perspective of how we both use NPM and how we use Node to scaffold out and launch our applications. And so probably what we will do next lecture will be to introduce the web framework that is Express, and also to go ahead and talk about the responsibilities of a web server, since that's what Express will do for us. And I think you should already get a notion of that from the lab you're currently working on. Excellent. Okay, well, that's it for today. Everyone, have a great day, and I will see you all on Thursday.